Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us to today's webinar on website accessibility. My name is Erica Wilhite, and I'm the Accessibility Coordinator for the Arts Council here. If you need to enable captioning for this meeting, you can by clicking on the word More in your right-hand screen of Zoom. There are three little dots, and you can choose closed captioning. Also, if this meeting's scheduled for an hour and a half, we do not have a scheduled break. So if you need to take a break on your own, feel free to. Also, feel free to stay off with your cameras or on, whatever is most comfortable for you. We are joined here today with a wonderful organization that I had the pleasure of seeing presentations by at the LEAD conference, the Kennedy Center Conference in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is a group called Abler. This presentation is a partnership with NewView, and they will be presenting on the website accessibility content today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you more about what they do, but I just wanted to let you know that our presenters today are Sarah Clark and John Samuel. And I believe there might be another one joining us. But I'm going to hand it over to Sarah now, who will take it over from here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Erica. And hi, all. Thanks so much for joining us. So excited to see everybody here. Thanks for turning on your cameras. It's fun to see smiling faces. Hello. But so excited to join y'all today. Really excited about this opportunity. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And we are sharing. Let's see. Can y'all see the presentation? Yes? Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you. Awesome. So I'm so excited to talk to y'all today about the art of accessibility, because it is indeed an art. And I am joined, let me go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Sarah Clark. I'm the marketing strategist here at Abler, and I'm so excited to be joined by John Samuel, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So nice to be here with y'all today. You know, we are very excited always to talk about accessibility and really with the arts. I mean, as I mentioned, my name is John Samuel, and in addition to being the co-founder and CEO of Abler, I'm also on the board of directors of the United Arts Council here in Wake County and Raleigh. So the arts is something that is something really close to my heart, and so it's really excited to be here with y'all. And you know, when we think about it, we'll go to the next slide, Sarah. You know, when we think about the journey of accessibility, we're all on a different journey, right? I like to talk about the accessibility journey because we're all at different stages of this. For myself and my co-founder, we were at completely different backgrounds when we came together to start Abler. And I think it's important to understand, you know, my journey and to see how we get here today. So I'm originally born and raised in Cary, North Carolina, which is a suburb of Raleigh. And when I was in high school, I started noticing changes in my eyesight, but didn't know what was going on. And when I got to college, I was up in school in Richmond, Virginia at Virginia Commonwealth University. I was walking around this urban campus, but I was walking into everything, and I was constantly cut up and bruised. And I knew something seriously was off with my sight at this point. So when I got checked out, and I was diagnosed with a degenerating eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa, and I was told I was going blind. And as a young person, I didn't handle the news very well. I was ashamed and embarrassed and didn't want anyone to know that I was going blind. And I had failed out of college because I just didn't know how to handle this news. And so I ended up moving back home to North Carolina and finding a loophole at NC State where I started taking classes, and I eventually graduated. But I knew I had to get out of North Carolina because it wasn't safe for me to drive for myself or others on the road. So I decided to go out to Bangalore, India. And went to Bangalore, India, because I could get a car and driver pretty easily there. And for me at that time, my biggest accessibility barrier was driving. And so, you know, culturally, it was really challenging for me to be there away from my friends and my family. So I decided to come back home to the U.S., moved to New York City, where I was working for the city of New York. And the city provided me everything I needed. It had great public transportation, It had a robust subway system. And, not to mention if I'm walking on the street in New York and I bump into someone, there was nothing more in New York than just putting your head down and keep walking. So it was like the perfect place for me. But when I started looking at my career and looking at my friends around me, I was just on completely different career tracks. They were moving up in their companies or joining hedge funds or law firms or going to grad school. And I just didn't see that same type of career trajectory for myself. And so I ended up joining a company that wanted to start up operations in Cameroon. And I said, I'll go out there. I'll move out there and start this company for you. But when the investors of this company found out that I couldn't see, they said, no way. I pleaded with them and I said, just give me a chance. And they said, okay, we'll give you 6 months and then we'll go our separate ways. So I said, fine. So I took a $20,000 investment. I left Manhattan, moved to Douala, Cameroon to go start this company. And had immediate success. And that company went, spread across the continent. And, it was an amazing experience for myself. And so I decided to come back home to do my MBA. And throughout the time I was in Africa and in New York, I wasn't talking about my vision loss openly. But when I got to DC and started grad school, I found myself at a networking event where I couldn't see where I was supposed to go sit. So I turned to the person next to me for help and happened to be the dean of the business school. And she was the same person who had recruited me to come there. But I had never disclosed. And so she had no idea that I couldn't see, but she could empathize with me. And she had a child with special needs. And she encouraged me to be open about my vision loss. And so I started talking about it openly. And for the first time, I could be my true self, my authentic self. And I was able to open my heart for the very first time. And I met my wife in the program. But even though I was now open about talking about my vision loss in my personal life, I thought professionally companies and organizations would see it as a liability. So I kept it a secret. Eventually, I landed with a private equity firm. But after 3 years, that company folded. And I was out of a job again. But now I had a wife, a baby, and we had just built a house in DC. And the stress of everything caused my site to go even faster. Up until this point, I was able to get by using magnification software and inverted colors, so white text on a black background. But now nothing worked, and I thought my career was over. And that's when I heard about this software that was developed at SAS, a data science company. And they had created this software to help people who are blind and low vision visualize graphs and charts using sounds. And I thought it was the coolest thing. But the coolest thing about this software was that it was designed by somebody with the same eye condition as me, and he lived in my hometown of Cary, North Carolina, the same place I never thought anyone blind could ever live. And so I tried for months to get in touch with this guy named Ed, and no luck. Then finally, my wife said, if Ed can live in North Carolina, maybe we can too. So we found a house online, told my folks, they got so excited, they never thought I was coming home. My dad immediately jumped in the car to go look at this house. And as he's driving, he talks on the phone and start yelling at something. Like, what are you doing, Dad? He's like, there's a blind guy on the road. Maybe it's the guy you're trying to get in touch with. Like, Dad, please don't yell at blind people on the road. Don't yell at anyone on the road. He's like, all right, gets out of the car, walks over to this poor guy and says, are you Ed Summers? And the guy goes, yes, I am. And my dad puts the phone in the poor guy's ear and says, my son's trying to reach you. And after apologizing to him profusely, he agreed to meet me. And I came down that next weekend. And a 30-minute conversation turned to 3 hours. And Ed introduced me to the world of accessibility. And he, more importantly, showed me that my career wasn't over. And so, that led me to coming down to back home to North Carolina. And I ended up joining a company called LCI, which happened to be one of the largest employers of people who are blind in the country. And they wanted to start up a new business that would create upward mobility for people who are blind in tech. And so I ended up joining the company, tasked with starting this new business. And that's where we eventually started LCI Tech, the predecessor to Abler. And I remember when I first started to, think about this, the personal challenge of my own life is what led me down my road to accessibility. But what I didn't realize at the time was that, for the longest time, I thought I was alone. Go to the next slide, Sarah. I didn't realize that 15% of the global population, or roughly 1 billion people, identify with having a disability. It took me forever to really understand, that I wasn't alone. It took me randomly bumping into Ed Summers on the road to understand that I wasn't alone. And here is a population that 1 billion people worldwide had a disability. And so, this whole kind of journey really kind of led us down this road. And I started thinking about, how can we get involved? How can we launch an accessibility practice? So I actually typed in Google, I typed in Raleigh, accessibility. And the first thing that came up was the Raleigh Little Theater, a local community theater here in North Carolina. And they were talking about sensory-friendly shows that they were performing. And I thought it was amazing. And I started reading the article, and I saw that the executive director of the Raleigh Little Theater was a gentleman named Charles Fanoff. And Charles Fanoff and I had gone to high school together, but we hadn't talked to each other in almost 17 years. And so when I reached out to him, I said, can we meet? Can we talk? I love what you're doing. And when Charles saw that I had lost my sight, he didn't know. He realized, I said, how are people going to know about the amazing work you're doing at the theater if people can't access your website? And that really gave us our start in accessibility. And so, this really was kind of our starting point. And so what we realized is that we can't break down these barriers alone. We need partners. The Raleigh Little Theater gave us that chance. It was just like when I met my co-founder, Mike Iannelli. He was going through personal challenges, and we became, we had to work together to be able to create Abler and to really kind of break down this barrier. And so, and so when I started thinking about what are the things that we have to do at Abler to really break down these barriers, the first things we started thinking about were we had to eliminate the digital divide. And this is what we were going to do through our digital accessible practices. And then the next thing we had to do was we had to change the mindsets of people and organizations. And then the next thing we had to do was we had to create pathways for employment. And these became the 3 pillars of us at Abler. And this is how we were going to remove the barriers for people with disabilities. And why does this really matter? Why is it like, when we start thinking about accessibility, like, why does this matter? Accessibility is about providing access to all people, no matter their abilities. This is making sure that people can access websites, digital content, mobile applications. Because when we start to think about it, in all aspects of our life, we're using technology. We need to make sure that all people can access this. We need to make sure that people can access education. We need to make sure that people can access employment. And we need to make sure that people can access entertainment and arts. And so when we start to think about why does this really matter, again, why does access matter? And why does it matter to organizations? It matters because we need to make sure that we're being inclusive of all people. We need to make sure that we're including people who can bring new innovative thoughts, processes, ideas to the table. And in many ways, what accessibility does is what arts does. It brings people together. And I like to say that accessibility is much more than just about a line of code, but it's about human experiences. It's about people. And just like with the arts is, it brings people together and be able to bring us to talk about different things. With that, I'm going to pass it on to Sarah to talk a little bit more about what we do and how we make sure that things are accessible.
Thanks, John. Thanks for a wonderful introduction. I know I've heard your story before, but it's always really fun to hear it again and then see everyone's reactions. We did get some laughs in here. So thanks for warming up the crowd for me. So yeah, well, yeah, an important part of learning about digital accessibility is, now we understand what it is. So let's learn a little bit about where it came from and who or what kind of controls it. So this is what brings us now to Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG. It doesn't sound great, but WCAG. I want to go through these basics. Now, the WCAG was developed by the Accessibility Guidelines Working Group, AGWG, and this is recognized worldwide. It provides a single technical standard for digital content accessibility, and it explains how to make digital content more accessible for folks with disabilities. And so this is what we refer to at Abler when we perform our accessibility testing or audits. So this is a really important and crucial piece of accessibility and a really helpful resource as well. All right, now that we kind of understand the origins
Mhm.
a little bit more and where the guidelines are from, I do want to talk about some of the common myths surrounding digital accessibility and why folks might be hesitant to dive into the WCAG or accessibility as a whole. So, some of the accessibility myths include that it takes too much time, makes a site boring, is the developer's responsibility, best to provide an alternative accessibility option or a widget, or it's too complex. So those are all myths, actually, that we debunk here at Abler pretty much every day. You will find, especially once we finish this presentation, you'll find that accessibility is actually something that's really approachable and something that we all can chip away at. And I know I'm not a developer; I'm the marketing strategist, but I can make a contribution to accessibility and make things more accessible. And I'd still, I don't have a lot of knowledge about code. I'm not a developer. So you will see that it is actually something really approachable. And it also emphasizes universal design. So it doesn't actually make your website boring. It makes it better for everyone because we'll kind of talk about some of the pieces that make accessibility something that is attractive to all people, regardless of ability. It
So
really
with that,
actually makes. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, can I say something right here? Yeah,
Please.
yeah,
Yes.
this I get really excited about this part because when and it's because a lot of people when we're talking about it, people think accessibility is boring, doesn't look good, but accessibility can be sexy, and I have something that can show that. Like I have my watch, Sarah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, and so as Sarah's mentioning about the universal design, what I'm wearing right now is a universally designed watch that is designed that people who are blind can touch the time, while people who can see actually can read the time by looking at the ball bearings. So Sarah, can you see my watch?
Yes. If you can hold it, maybe try a little bit closer to the screen. Yeah, that's good. And then can you put your hand like behind your wrist too
Oh,
to
there
to
we
show?
go.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
that.
perfect. So you can see this. And so maybe, Sarah, we can also share the link
Hmm.
to the one later on. But this timepiece really shows, I think it embodies everything you're saying, right?
Hmm.
And you see the strap. We also have a strap. And this is another thing that we've done at Abler is the Drip My Cane competition. So I don't know if you've heard of Pimp My Ride, folks. It used to be an MTV show. Well, we did Drip My Cane and we had folks come up with cool designs for my cane. But
Hmm.
I'm sorry to deviate, Sarah.
No, that's a wonderful. I'm so glad you brought that up. Because it's so relevant in the arts too of textured design, universal design. There's some really innovative and cool ways that we can make art accessible for all folks. And it changes our perspective on what art is, and even website creation and development. These things that sound so technical really are very artistic. Anyway, I could have a whole presentation on that. Um, so I won't get too caught up.
Mhm.
Um, so now that we've kind of understand the origins and some of the myths, I kind of want to talk about the most common accessibility issues that are found on websites. And so here on the left side of the screen, you'll see a statistic. So according to the Million Web Page Study, 96.3% of all web pages have detectable errors. And we say detectable errors, this specifically refers to accessibility errors. So you'll see that almost 100% of websites and the content out there actually have digital accessibility issues. So it just shows you how common this issue is, but folks don't really know a lot about it. So I want to go through some of the common issues here. Text is difficult to read. This is referred to as color contrast. I have a visual example here of light orange text on a white background. That's just hard for anyone to read, let alone someone with a visual impairment. Next thing is images need alternative descriptions. This is something we call alternative text. Another common issue, forms are not clearly labeled. And link purpose is unclear. And the page language is not defined. So these are a little bit more technical. These kind of go into the WCAG guidelines, but I will go into a few of these in this slide deck. But first, I do want to, provide an explanation of kind of why these issues are issues in the first place. And a great way to do this is to provide a bit of information on how accessible technology or assistive technology interacts with websites and digital content as a whole. So talking about the usability experience. So one of the common assistive technology tools that we use at Abler and that a lot of folks in the disability community use is called a screen reader. And so this is technology that reads out digital content and it speaks it out loud. And I will actually provide a demonstration of what one of the screen readers sounds like. And so how does a screen reader navigate a website? Well, it uses the heading structure to do so, and it can give the user a quick snapshot of the content and its outline. It can also navigate by links on that web page. So it highlights the actionable items on that page. It can also navigate by line, word, or character. And this is so that the user can navigate through the actual written content of that web page. And then next, so now that we have all that kind of background information, I'm excited to give y'all a deeper dive of kind of what these accessibility issues look like in practice. And so the first thing that I want to do is take y'all through color contrast. And so this refers to the contrast. So, the text, the color of the text against the background that it's on. So we need sufficient color contrast. The guidelines say that we need 4.5 to 1 ratio. To give y'all some context, black text on a white background, or that black and white contrast, is 21 to 1. So there's a really wide range of colors that we can be using here. So that contrast ratio is really not a restrictive thing. But it's going to be really helpful for all users if you've got good color contrast. And so we've got some resources, and we can share out this presentation, but we have some linked resources on some of the tools that we use to test color contrast. My favorite tool is, there's a screenshot on this slide, and it shows the color contrast analyzer, where you can pick certain colors on a web page, and it will tell you what the contrast is. So here you'll see a 3.9 to 1. We pulled this orange color, and the background is this white. And so this is a really helpful tool if you're just kind of on the go, just, especially if you're a web designer, making sure that your buttons or that your links are accessible. So this is a really great tool for that. And another great tool is this accessible color palette builder. I like to use this a lot, but a lot of brands have. So y'all already probably have your style guides. You probably already have your brand colors or your color palette. So you can plug in those hex codes or whatever kind of color values you have into this color contrast builder, and it will give you a chart of all of the accessible combinations within that color palette. So that's a really great tool that we recommend to a lot of our brand and marketing friends that our clients.
And Sarah, and this is a perfect example. You don't have to necessarily change your colors. It's just a discipline of where to put, those combinations. So a lot of people, think that they have to change their colors. Not necessarily. You just have to find that right combo.
That's right. That's one of the myths.
That's one of those
Thanks,
myths.
John. Yeah. All right. The next, images. Oh, this is an exciting one. So images, there are some best practices here, actually a lot of best practices with accessibility here, but are they really worth 1,000 words? So some common issues here are alternative text or alt text. And so sometimes that's missing, or it doesn't quite match the image or go with the purpose of the image. And so first, let me take a step back and actually describe what alternative text is. And that's a brief written description that's paired with an image in the back end. And it describes what the image is of or what purpose it serves. And so this is available in the back end, and it's read out loud by the screen reader to the screen reader user. So even if someone can't see the image that's on the page, their screen reader will read out that alternative text and fill in any kind of gaps or information there. Now, we have a lot of different types of images that require different types of alternative text. And this is where it can get a little nuanced as well. And this is where it's really helpful to have someone who is a screen reader user getting their input on this. Well, it's really good to get their input on everything, but it's but here's just a hard example of like when it is great to get input, or like if you have a question that you need to asking them, hey, we have this image. Do you think that, what kind of description should go with it? This is what it is. And a lot of the times just keeping it short and sweet is the way to go. Sometimes they are decorative images. They don't actually serve any kind of purpose, or, they're just there for visual interest. And those could be decorative, but again, this is where you can kind of ask your team, where you think these images lie, what kind of purpose they serve, and how they interact with the content of the site as a whole. Yeah. So there are resources, and again, the WCAG outlines the different images that there are and what kind of alternative text can be paired with them. And we have a link here on this slide to go through those kinds of different images.
Sarah, with that also, I think it's important to understand why we say short and sweet sometimes, because, and again, when Sarah goes through with the example of the screen reader, you'll see there's so much information being read out to us that when you get an image, we really want to just get the information, I need to understand what it is, and if it has any relevance or any context to what's going on the website. So the more content I'm taking in, if I don't need it, I don't need it, right? And I want to keep moving forward. And I think it's really important to understand that. And you don't really understand that unless you are using a screen reader. So that's the reason why. And having those, if it's decorative, we don't need to have that. We don't need to have that labeled, because it's not adding any value to me if it's just for decoration. So that kind of gives you a little bit more context. And when Sarah goes to the example, you'll see that.
Yeah. Thanks, John. No, that's a wonderful point. Because we also, if I can kind of make a point of like, when you're going through a site, you can tell if something is just there for fun or if it's just visually. You can make that decision in like half a second. We want to give that same option to screen reader users. We don't want to bog them down with information that isn't really applicable or necessary. Also, I see we have a hand raised. Caitlin?
Yeah, it's a good point. I was just thinking, because I was a presenter for a webinar for the Arts Council I think it was just a week ago. And my PowerPoint, like I had tons of images of the theater program that I was doing. And as I was going through, like trying to make the presentation accessible, because I had, it was just trying to show what we did. And so I had, I don't know, 5 or 6 pictures on a slide. And as I was going through the accessibility text, my thought was like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine somebody trying to listen to all this with a screen reader. So, if in an instance like that, where you do have a bunch of pictures, is it useful at all to have just one description that you can kind of link all the images to? Can you do that? Would that be helpful to just say, this is images showing, actors on stage in costume? Is that helpful, or how would you do something like that if you did have multiple images?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think on a slide, you can say a collage of images featuring costume designs, right? So that way I know, okay, all that information on that slide in one sentence, right? That makes it much simpler. But if you had, unless there is specific context on each of those images that I need to know, that adds value to that slide. That makes sense? Like, because again, like you said, there's so much information. Even while we're going on, even when I was making my presentation, I hadn't turned off my Outlook. So I'm getting so much information in my ear. I have my mails coming in, my slides, even the Zoom. So you have to remember what that audience, that user experience is. So the more direct we can get, the better.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you for describing that.
Yeah, then, you'll never know what's going on in here. I got this.
Yeah, that's an overwhelming amount of information. Thank you.
It's information overdrive. Yeah. So, and I think that really comes down to it. Once you understand that it's about that user experience, it helps out a lot.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then in PowerPoint as well, you do have the option to make images decorative. So that way they're not read by the screen reader. So if you are going through your images and you think this is just a visual image that is portraying the program and not necessarily adding context, you can always mark that as decorative as well. And then it would be ignored by the screen reader.
And sorry,
Thanks, Ariel.
that's our colleague.
Yeah, we-
That's that's
Sorry,
Ariel.
Forgot to mention.
Sorry, just jumping in
By
here.
the way, we have another colleague joining us today, Ariel Gines. I know, Ariel, do you want to take an opportunity or a brief second to introduce yourself?
Sorry. Just sneaking in here. I like to hide in the shadows, I always say. But I am Ariel and I work on the accessibility team. I'm our project coordinator as well as one of our testers when we're testing websites. And I also work with remediating PDFs. So like Sarah was saying with images, that is something that we could talk about for hours alone on images, just because it is such a complex issue. But we always recommend just, if you can write it in words, to do that. Like if you can put, because you guys are in the arts, I'm sure with your guys' art, you have so much to say about it. I'm sure it represents things. So if you can always put that in the description next to it in text, that would always be a better best practice than trying to cram all of that into the alternative text.
Awesome.
And
Thanks,
as we
Ariel.
go through the presentation, also, if you don't feel comfortable raising your hand like Caitlin, feel free to put it into the chat and Ariel can also answer them there as well.
All right.
Sorry, Sarah.
No, that's totally fine. Thanks, Ariel, for jumping in. We wanted to make sure that we had someone with some really good technical know-how helping to back John and I up on this presentation. So thank you so much, Ariel, for jumping in, and thank you, Caitlin, for your question. That was awesome. Really, really cool to see y'all already thinking about this kind of stuff. So
Cool. Thanks for the answers. Appreciate it.
of course. All right, let's see what we got next. Oh, link purpose. So again, I'll do a demonstration of this in real time because it's hard to explain, at least for me, it's hard to explain verbally. So it's something that I can show y'all and provide a little bit more information on. But essentially here, so when link text when it does not describe the destination of a link, people who have a visual impairment or people with mobility impairments or reading disabilities or low vision may have more difficulty understanding the purpose of that link. So they're not sure whether or not they even want to click on that link. If they don't know where it's going to take them, if that's not made clear, that's going to be a really important accessibility feature that is often overlooked. And so we see this a lot with click here or learn more or read more. A lot of the times the way that those are described verbally when you're on them with the screen reader, it doesn't provide sufficient information on what you would actually be learning more about or reading more about. So that's link purpose.
And with that one, Sarah, because I think it's also really important to understand how, again, that user experience, because when I go to a website, one of the very first things I do to a website is I am going to be looking at all the links, and I can pull up a list of all the links. And if it says click here, or learn more, I have no context. And so it really comes into, it comes to life when you actually see how a screen reader user navigates a website. And because again, like we said, there's so much information. I want to get to the information as quick as possible. So I often say, as fast as you can see with your eyes, I need to hear with my ears. So I listen to it fast, but I'm also trying to find the information as fast as possible. And that's why link purpose is such an important thing.
Thanks, John. That also reminds me of another good point. A lot of these accessibility features are also, as part of the universal design, are really great for SEO because they're all facilitating the storytelling of your website, who you are, what your services are, what is the point of your website, where is it taking people. So having that clearly mapped out is going to be great for accessibility, but also really benefit your SEO. So thank you for bringing that up.
And also, right? So even the alternative text that we just talked about, right? That ties into SEO. So you can actually think about SEO very much like a screen reader user. The way that we navigate a website as a screen reader user, so is the this SEO
The crawler, yeah.
crawler, right? The SEO crawler is very similar to a blind screen reader user. So,
Mhm.
we serve dual purposes here.
That's right. Yeah. All of the content, everything you're putting into the accessibility, it's still content and it exists in the back end of your website. So it's not just like serving, yeah, it's dual purpose. It's serving
Yeah.
two purposes, probably a million more. All right. And then let's see. Next, structuring content. So this kind of refers to the headings. And again, I will show y'all in real time. But this is another way that the screen reader user navigates the website. But having a proper page layout or heading structure is going to be really important for overall navigation and comprehension of your website and its content. And it really helps folks be able to navigate and understand kind of the layout of your website, how you're presenting information, and then it's going to help with navigation and finding new information, even if we don't know it exists yet. But going through your website is going to become a lot easier, and it's going to be really much easier to understand as well. And so there's some built-in formatting that we can use for headings, also lists and line breaks. So a lot of these are already built in, or we have some tools for this, either in WordPress or other web content management systems. But the headings, think of it as an outline of the main points of the document. So what are the main titles or the main section headers that you need to include to summarize what content is on the page, what kind of body copy you have below each heading, so on and so forth. And then again, lists. The lists are for the purpose of lists. So if you've got a list and it's listing things out, that's when you use the list. And that is this is relevant information, because sometimes we see lists used like for formatting purposes, but we have to understand too that lists serve a unique purpose, and it's not just for formatting or for looks. Sometimes we see heading structures or other things used for visuals, but we have to understand that the key purpose of them really is about the structure and the overall content of your website. CSS, that's the visual. That's where we can get fancy, and that's where you can modify the visuals of your website. But the heading structure and lists are purely for those functions.
And
Right.
as I mentioned in the beginning, links is probably the second thing I look at. The first thing I do is I go through with my headings, and I'm going to see quickly what information this website has. And so heading structure is so critical, and I can almost immediately tell if someone gets accessibility, because there'll be only one heading one. So we'll share that information, but immediately, just by pushing the letter H on my keyboard and navigating a website, I can almost see, does this organization get accessibility with just one keystroke? And so that's how important heading structure is.
That's right. Thanks, John. Okay, awesome. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing because I want to reshare and include sound. This is the fun part. Well, one of the fun parts of where I want to do a real-time demonstration and walk y'all through these different accessibility considerations in real time. So let me share my screen. We're going to share sound, share this. Excellent. Okay. Can y'all see that this is now the Abler website that I'm sharing? Okay, thank you. Thank you. We got many thumbs up. Very helpful for me. Awesome. So yeah, we're here on the Abler website. So let's go ahead and start with color contrast, shall we? So something that's going to be really helpful are your inspect tools, but that might get a little bit, yeah, let's go into inspect for a second. These are the developer tools. And so this gets a little bit in the weeds, but it's going to be, if you can, take some time to kind of explore this window, it's going to be extremely beneficial for when you're checking out any other accessibility things on your website or any other accessibility features. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this button. So we have an dark orange button with white text on top of it. It says say hello. And I can go into this tooltip here. This is another way of inspecting information. I can highlight this tooltip and select or hover over a particular element on the page. And you can see here, hopefully you can see that there is the pop-up window and there's an accessibility feature, and it tells me the color contrast of that actual, oops, sorry, I closed that, of that actual button and the text. And it gives you a slight preview as well. So you can see 5.49 to 1, which is above the 4.5 to 1 ratio that we need to hit. So you can see that this button is actually accessible. So yay, we did that one. And then let me go ahead and open up, this is the color contrast analyzer tool. Let me pull it into the right window, just to show y'all, this is what this looks like. And so you can do the color dropper as well. And this is also a really helpful tool. But these color droppers are the things that you can use to select the particular color that you want to test. So these color droppers, and then it will give you, so you can see here, this black and white is 21 to 1. So this is what that tool looks like as well. This is the color contrast analyzer. And again, we will share this presentation out, and it has the links to this as well. So let me go ahead and close out of this, and let me transition to, let's do images. So another important thing, so something that I like to use is, I do have a bookmarklets tab. Actually, you know what? Let's just say we're going to stay in the inspect tools, because I want to show you all too how you can check for alternative text in this inspect window. And so what I did a right click on the screen and then went down to inspect. And then again, I'm going to do, we can either do a select the element, which is just an easy way to do that. And I'm going to hover over this image. And when I click on it, it highlights the image in the actual code. And so for this one, I know that we pretty sure we marked this one as decorative. Yeah. So this is marked as decorative. Let's go to one that isn't decorative. Let's see if we can find, oh, these
Sarah,
logos.
what is that image though? What was that image that was
Oh,
decorative?
it's our hero image, an animated characters. They're sitting around like a little conference table taking notes. This is on the home page.
Yeah, and so that wouldn't add any value to me, right? It's just a decorative image there to, yeah. So that's a good example. And did you share how you make that decorative image? Did you show the empty?
I didn't.
Yeah.
But we could go into the back end of WordPress.
Mhm.
But there should be, and it depends on the actual CMS that you're using. But in WordPress, there's you can leave it blank if you want to mark it decorative. Sometimes there's the checkbox to mark it as decorative. So it depends on your content management system. So definitely research how to do decorative text on your content management system or whatever you're using, because there's different ways to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go down here. So these are logos, but they're also links. So this is what we call active images. So let me go ahead and highlight on one of these, and the Kennedy Center. Great. So let's click on this element, highlights in the code, and then we can see here. So it's the image. Great. And here's the specific code. Alt equals the Kennedy Center. And so that is what we typed in the WordPress. And when we're uploading the actual image, we said the Kennedy Center, we tied it to this image. And this is important because it is an active image. So it's an image, but it's also a link. So if this image was just decorative, it wouldn't really provide you a clear explanation of why this image is important or what kind of purpose it serves. So it goes hand in hand with link purpose and alternative text. But you'll see here that all of these logos have accessible alternative text. And so you can also see in that pop-up window in that accessibility section that they all have a name. And that's that's the same thing as alternative text. That's how it displays it here. So that's for images. Again, it's the same thing here. Down here, featured in, we have different logos that are also linked. All right, so that is images. And what do we want to do next? Let's do heading structure. So I have a bookmarklet for this, just a tool to help outline, just show us really quickly, high level, the heading level structure. So we can go in here and click on the bookmarklet, and this window pops up, and it shows us, it has all these different numbers, but you'll notice there's only one heading level 1, and that's what this one is. The 2 is heading level 2, 3 is heading level 3, so on and so forth. But the structure is important. There should only be one heading level 1 on each page. And there should be a heading level 1 on each page, but just one, because this is describing the main content or the main purpose of this page. So here is Hello from Abler is our heading level 1, mission-driven nonprofit, will service disability inclusion. If it's our contact page, our heading level 1 is Contact Us. So it describes, so what is the page that you're on? You want that to be conveyed through your heading level 1. And then from there, you go from 1 to 2, and you don't skip heading levels. So you go from 1 to 2, and then a 2 to a 3. You don't go from a 1 to a 3, but you can go from say we had a heading level 4 nested within here. We could do heading level 4, and the next one could be a heading level 2. So you can't jump more than one, but you can go back more than one. And again, this is outlined in the WCAG. So I know this is a lot of kind of really detailed information right now, but I just wanted to provide y'all with an overview of how you can look for heading level structure and the importance of it. But again, you can see here too that, this outlines kind of the main content of the page. So this featured in section is a heading level 2, but then below, the content below that is the different images, the linked images of the articles that were featured in, which goes well with our heading level 2 featured in.
Mm-hmm.
So this is heading level structure. This is going to be really important. And then I'm excited to show y'all, this is link purpose, and I want to load the screen reader. I use, I'm not a native screen reader user, but when I do testing like these, or do examples, I use NVDA. So let me go ahead and load that up.
And NVDA is a free screen reader that anyone can download as well. It's a non-visual desktop assistant, I think. So
I think
or
so
access.
too.
Yeah, non-visual desktop access. So you can download NVDA for free, and it's a great tool to have.
Yeah, when you're putting together a website, it helps it helps you take a step back and yeah. So anyway, I'll demonstrate what I mean here. So
Homemade toolbar. Homemade change your perspective.
Okay, so
Read
now
about
we're
Abler
on
partnering with
the Abler
Abler
website.
full service disability inclusion document. Abler partners with the Carolina Hurricanes. Visited link. Read about Abler partnering with the Carolina Hurricanes.
So I'm at the top of the page now, and I'm going through that very top navigation bar, and I'm hitting the tab key. And this is how we navigate. You can go from one active link to another. So button to button, link to link. This is the basic way that I will test or do some really high level preliminary testing. The real tester is RAL. But I do some preliminary testing to kind of get some link distinguishable or link purpose information. So let's keep going.
Change your perspective. Visited link. Accessibility. Visited link. Secondary menu navigation landmark list with 2 items. Risk-free assessment. Visited link. Watch demo. Visited link. Banner landmark. Skip to content link.
So these skip to content. These are also really important links so that in case you didn't want to go through the entire navigation or the bar, you can hit enter or space here, and it'll take you into the main content of the page so you don't have to go through the navigation. We might as well do that. So I hit enter. Let's keep going through the main
Main
content.
landmark heading level 1 hello from Ablur. Accessibility services visited link. Disability inclusion training visited link. Workforce development visited link.
So now you'll see we have a lot of our links already written out so that they reflect the service that we're offering, which is also a helpful way of making it your link purpose clear.
Say hello. Visited link.
Say hello.
Library Mutual Insurance graphic link. Ping graphic visited link. Carolina Hurricanes graphic visited link. Manscaped graphic visited link.
Great, let's keep going.
Get started with our accessibility services link.
Okay, so this is where link purpose comes in. So you'll see visually, there's 3 buttons on the screen. They all say get started. The potential issue with that is that these are different, these get started are referring to 3 different services. But we wanted to keep the link text short and sweet, and we wanted it to be visually consistent.
Show grid video. Selected alert. Kathy Liao has left the meeting alert.
Okay. that's
Show
okay.
grid video.
Sorry. So get started, but you can change the way that it reads in the back end. So it's not just get started, it's
Get started with disability inclusion training link.
get started with disability inclusion training.
Get started with workforce development link.
Get started with workforce development. So visually you can keep it however you want it to be labeled, which is nice. Again, it's just another testament to how you don't necessarily have to compromise on the visuals of your website to make it accessible. Let's see.
Like. This opens in a new window. Button.
Oh, and this is a good example. Here is a Vimeo plugin. So sometimes these plugins, you can't really control how it reads. But you can find different options of more accessible video platforms. Vimeo, I think it works relatively well. It keeps things relatively clear, but I'm glad that this came up as an example because it is something that is important to mention, is that a lot of the times third-party things you can't really control. So, let's see. And, I think that is going to be the get started is a good example. John, is there anything else that you think that I can provide an example of?
Yeah, I think if you do the headings, if you press H, and then you can hear how the heading structure is also.
Featured in heading level 2. Catch the latest on the Ablur community heading level 2. Carolina Hurricanes takes the lead in accessibility and disability inclusion visited link heading level 3. Hiring diverse talent link heading level 3. A checklist for creating accessible events link heading level 3. Stay connected. Heading level 2. Get our newsletter. Heading level 2. Content info landmark about Ablur heading level 2.
Awesome.
Right? And that's like the heading structure. So when I go to a website, that's the first thing I'm doing is jumping through the headings. And then you may want to push the letter G and we can listen to potential graphics and we can hear alternative text.
International Association of Accessibility Professionals, PAC Certified Graphic. Certified Trusted Tester Graphic. National Federation of the Blind Graphic.
These are in our footer.
ADA, National Association of ADA Coordinators Graphic.
Different certifications.
WCAG Compliant Graphic. ADA Compliant Graphic. No Next Graphic.
Awesome.
Perfect.
This is what's through our footer.
Yeah, so you get an idea. You get to hear what it is like an alternative text as well by pushing G.
Thanks, John.
And, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those cool shortcuts I'm still learning. But it also provides, again, like the shortcuts are shortcuts for a reason. That's how folks navigate the website, is through these shortcuts primarily.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's NVDA.
But Sarah, I think the same thing. I think when we talk about, having NVDA as a sighted user, it's a good tool for you to help you just get an idea, to hear what it is. But when you do the actual testing, it's really important to include native users of this assistive technology, because the way we use it is completely different than like the Sarah using it. Even though Sarah knows how to use it, she doesn't use it the way that I use it and how I navigate a website. So, going back to it, we're talking about human experiences. And so when you are doing testing, it's really important to include people with disabilities in the entire process because, again, it's their experience, not
Mhm.
necessarily yours if you're not necessarily a native user of assistive technology.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. So
Mhm.
let me go ahead. I'm going to close out of, actually, let me bring up this screen.
Link visited.
Wanted to show
Accessibility
y'all,
statement A Blur full service.
actually close
Exit NVDA dialog.
NVDA. And I actually, this is a funny story. I've been working on speeding up my NVDA speech because the more I listen to it, the more I can speed it up and make it go faster. But it is nowhere near where John's screen reader is, or some of our other colleagues. It's actually really, really cool. The more that you use it, the faster and faster you can listen to the speech. So it's a really cool experience. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. And what I'm showing y'all here is our accessibility statement. And I wanted to bring this up because it is an important segue to our next slide. So let me go ahead and pull in the presentation again. Okay, the accessibility statement. Can y'all see the presentation okay? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Erica. So the accessibility statement. So what is an accessibility statement? Really, it's just a document that communicates an organization's commitment to ensuring digital content and services are accessible to all, regardless of abilities or disabilities. So it's your commitment to accessibility. And the purpose of it is that it outlines the steps that you've taken to make information and resources accessible, and how you're fostering inclusivity and equal access. So it's the document that explains what you have been doing or what you will be doing for accessibility. And then really key part of this is to being fully transparent and listing contacts. So if folks have any kind of questions or if they run into any issues, listing a contact that folks can contact directly and let them know that, hey, I'm having some accessibility issues, or I can't access the contact form. Having that contact person is going to be vital for this accessibility statement, because it's not just you talking the talk, you're going to walk the walk, right? It shows that you actually are actively participating in inclusion, and that you take this seriously, and that you will help others fully use your website as well. Yeah, John, I don't know if you have anything. Yeah, please.
And I think when it's not just a Band-Aid. This is just one step of your accessibility process and journey, is having this statement. Because the worst thing is that if I have trouble and I don't know where to go and I have to search all over. So when Sarah showed you our website, we actually put it in the footer of our website. So that means it's on every single page on our website. No matter where anyone is on our website, they're going to be able to access that accessibility statement. Because the worst thing is, if I come up with an accessibility issue or challenge or some usability place where I can't necessarily access your website, the worst thing is if I can't figure out a way to connect with you and help me get access to it. So, we place it in the footer so that people have access to it no matter where they are on our site.
Thanks, John.
Mhm.
All right. So now I'm also excited. So as a marketing strategist, this is kind of one of my areas of one of my specialties is social media. So now that we've kind of talked about website accessibility, it is important to note that, it's not just websites, really any kind of digital content, lot more than just digital, physical content, everything can be made accessible or improved on. But specifically today, I'll talk about a little bit making an accessible LinkedIn post. So I do want to show y'all. So I have two screenshots on the page here. The first screenshot is of a social media post that's being drafted. And you'll see that as you upload the image, and then when you go in to edit that actual image, I have circled here this alt, A-L-T, and that's where you can put in the alternative text. So once you click on that button, it takes you to the screen that I have screenshotted on the left. Nope, on the right. Sorry. that shows what is on the right. And that's where it says alt text and it gives you a text box. And that's where you can put in the alternative text. And so this specifically shows LinkedIn, but there are different ways to do this, slightly different ways on the different social media platforms. So Facebook, again, it's also pretty clear, like when you go into the image, when you edit it, always look out for that alt text or the alternative text selection. It's in Facebook. It's also in Instagram and Twitter as well, or X, is what it's called now, to get used to that. But this is what this looks like specifically for LinkedIn. And I do want to offer,
Sarah,
oh, yes.
your screen is still showing the accessibility statement.
Oh, let me fix that.
Mhm.
Oh. Share screen. That makes sense. Okay. Here's now what I'm showing y'all. It is, so the two different screenshots, this is what it looks like on LinkedIn. So when you're uploading the post or the image to a LinkedIn post, this is what it looks like. There's the alternative text button. It's ALT. I have that circled in green on the left. And then once you click on that, it takes you to the screen that is on the right here. And you can type in your accessibility, your alternative text, and you click add. And then it takes you back to the main copy of the post so that you know that so it took the alternative text, it's in the image. And then when you post it, you don't actually see the alternative text on the end, or like when you actually post it, but it is there, it's in the back end, and it is read out loud by the screen reader. So anyway, thanks Ariel for letting me know. And so now I have an activity if y'all would like to post to your own LinkedIn. So sometimes what we've done in the past, so if folks took a screenshot of this presentation or of this meeting room and then, you know, practicing putting accessible or alternative text to that screenshot, keeping it short and sweet, and then actually posting it to LinkedIn. So if y'all are interested, you know, I invite you all to take part in this. But I also wanted to share some best practices as well for posting said picture. And so what, you know, something that's really important is going to be hashtags. So we know that hashtags are really important for marketing, for social media, but there's actually an accessible way to do hashtags. And so we call that camel case. So when you do hashtag alt text, those are two different words. It's alternative text, alt text. So you want to capitalize the first letter of each individual word. And so that helps with the readability. And so that is a really good accessibility kind of tidbit that really helps, not just, you know, it helps everybody. So that's what I kind of one of the main pieces that I use in social media, other than the alternative text, is those camel case. Of course, also using people first language. So when you're writing the actual copy, you want to make sure that you use people first language. So someone with a disability or a person with a disability, you want to focus on the person first, because they're not necessarily, well, they're not defined by their disability. They are a person first. So maybe an artist with a visual impairment, or, you know, an artist with a disability, so on and so forth. But John, is there any other
Yeah, Sarah, do you think we can post
practices?
something? I think that for best practice, I think that's great. Do you think we can actually do a live demo ourselves?
I think that we can. So let me go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing so that I can get a nice gallery view.
Is everyone okay with that? Can we take a picture of it all?
All right, let me go ahead and get my screenshot tool. All right, so okay, everyone, if y'all are on camera, you could smile for me, that would be awesome. Oh, perfect. Okay, wonderful. So let me, now that I've got this image, let me go ahead, save it down really quickly so I don't lose it. Screenshot of the webinar. All right, and this is what I'm going to do. Now, I'm going to share my screen again. I am going to share the correct screen this time. This one. Okay, now let's go to LinkedIn. Let me go to, okay, so we're here on the Abler page. We're going to start a post. And I'm going to click on Add Media. Upload from computers. Screenshot, webinar. All right, now we have our lovely, lovely webinar screenshot. Let me go ahead and, so I clicked on the alternative text button. So now we're in the alt text box. So does anyone want to take a stab at what kind of, what y'all think the alternative text should be?
Any suggestions?
Let's see, how about, so we want to, okay, so let's see. I like to mention, oh wait, did something come in?
There we
Oh,
go.
thank you. Okay, screenshot of participants in accessibility webinar.
Perfect.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Awesome. So let me go ahead and copy that in. Let's see. So screenshot, I like saying, yes, it is a screenshot. Oh yes,
Yeah,
add Zoom
Zoom gallery.
gallery. Does that help? Yeah, screenshot of the Zoom gallery. Or screenshot of
Accessibility webinar in gallery view on Zoom.
oh yes. Screenshot of participants in an accessibility webinar. Shown in Zoom gallery.
Perfect.
Awesome. And then let's see, John, would you like to, do you think it would be relevant to add any?
Yeah, context. I mean, for the message, say
Yeah. So let me,
excited.
okay, so the alternative text is done.
All right.
So just again, short and sweet, because we can describe the bulk of the actual content in the copy.
Say we were excited to share, excited to share a lunch with, folks in the arts community in Oklahoma who are interested in learning more about accessibility. Exclamation point. Thanks to the Oklahoma Council for the Arts. Is that the correct,
Wait, hold
Erica?
on, John.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, you talk faster than I type. Arts community in Oklahoma who are interested in accessibility. You're like, many
then-
thanks.
Many thanks to and so Erica, is it Oklahoma Council?
Yeah, it's Oklahoma Arts Council.
Arts Council and New View for inviting us. Exclamation point. And this example just shows you how simple it is to add alternative text, right? And also making your website. So this is exciting.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and do our camel case. So hashtag alt text. And then I also like to add in A11Y, which is accessibility. and the 11 is it stands for
Right.
the number of letters that are in between the A and the Y. So A11Y, and it also spells kind of like ally. So that's pretty cool. So A11Y. This is a helpful if y'all ever wanted to post in the future. Awesome. We are excited to share lunch with folks in the arts community in Oklahoma who are interested in accessibility. Many thanks to the Oklahoma Arts Council and New View Oklahoma for inviting us.
Let's do
Hashtag alt
hashtag
text.
arts. Let's do arts.
Oh, yeah. Hashtag arts. Hashtag alt text, hashtag ally, hashtag arts. Awesome.
All A's.
That's
Cool.
right. All right, well, we'll go ahead and post that. And then if y'all wanted, you could you could follow Abler and like that post. You know, or check it out. You can also do the inspect tool to double check our alternative text. It also works in that sense as well. So let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that then I can share the right screen again. Let me go ahead and open the PowerPoint. And it's this one. All right. So thank you for watching that demonstration for LinkedIn. And awesome. Okay, now I'm so excited. I want to open the floor up for any kind of questions that y'all might have. So please feel free to ask away. John, Ariel, and I are available for questions. If y'all have any. Or comments or stories.
Yeah. Did anyone try the exercise? Did anyone try posting anything? Nope. Well, it's a fun exercise if you get a chance. Try posting it because it is fun. It's a good way to practice your alternative text writing. And, you know, by showing it on social media, it's a great way to get that practice. And again, in a very quick, immediate gratification that you can see. Yeah. So there's a comment in there. Yeah. So, you know, I think there are different add-ons and widgets that you can use to do some immediate testing. So, for instance, we use a couple of widgets like Axe Auditor or WebAIM, the wave testing tool, and these can test on a one-by-one basis, but automated testers will only catch around 40% of the issues. So it really goes back to being able to test those, but using the automated tester, right, it really goes back to making sure that you're testing with the manual testing to make sure that you're getting all the accessibility.
That's
Ariel,
a great
any
question.
thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, so there are some like templates and stuff if you're using WordPress that do keep accessibility in mind, but that can only do so much. How you input your information and how you build your website is going to be the main part of accessibility. And same with, there are different accessibility widgets that you can add to your site, but we have found that those just cause further complications versus just having the code right to begin with. So that way the accessibility at, the different technologies can navigate your platform. We do have different scanning things that tools that we use. But like John was saying, they don't catch many of the issues. We've actually found, we've been kind of for fun, been tracking what our manual versus automated rate is. And we have found that majority of our issues that we find are manual from 80 to 90%. So that leaves a very small percentage that is caught by the automated checkers.
Yeah. And those
so just doing those
automated
best practices and due diligence is what's going to really keep your site accessible.
Exactly, right. And so I think the automated testing, Sarah showed some of the booklets, like the color contrast. That's what the automated testers can catch. It's those definitive, is the ratio more than 4.5 to 1, right? That's what it can test. But when it comes down to the discernible text or making sure these type of that experience, it's something I always talk about. It's all about the human experience. So manual testing is really what it comes down to.
Especially because we do test, like Sarah was saying, the W3C standards. And that's not just for people with vision impairments, that covers all disabilities. And so you might have somebody with mobility disability. So they're going to need to use that tab key, and focus indicator is going to be really important there. So we do test for a wide variety of disabilities, not just vision impairments. And so a lot of those you're going to catch by doing those manual testing, because the code's not it's not going to be able to find it by scanning the code. You're going to have to actually get in there and manually test. And so that's where those things really come into play.
Mhm.
We have another question. I've seen some folks adding a description of the image and the actual caption itself for social posts. Is this helpful to include along with alt text on the back end?
Yeah,
I mean,
go ahead, Victoria.
I was just gonna say, I think that would probably be more helpful than the alt text, especially because when you have it in actual text, that's going to help more people, because not everybody uses a screen reader. Like John was saying before, with his journey through his disability, he didn't use his screen reader that entire time. So somebody who's just starting to lose their vision or might be low vision, they're going to be more benefited with that in the caption itself, especially if they're using things like magnification software. Then they can use that magnification to enlarge that text and be able to read it, versus if it was just in the alt text, they're going to miss that information.
Yeah, I, right on with Ariel, everything she said, because it is. And then also, Sarah, I know that sometimes, you know, a lot of organizations use, what are those, like the post kind of planner? What are those things called?
Oh,
Like,
yeah, like Loomly.
yeah,
Yeah, the auto posters, like where you can build out your social calendar and upload it with the social media graphics or the content.
right. And exactly. And some of those social media posters don't necessarily, you can't necessarily plan in the alternative text. Some of them you can with some of the platforms, but some of them you can't. So by putting it into the body of your post, that solves that issue also.
Mhm. That's right.
Mhm.
And also is important to mention too, trying to create accessible graphics as well. So, you know, making sure that your key information is already going to be in your body copy. So something I do a lot, I plan a lot of events here at Abler, and I market for those events. If I uploaded a graphic that had all the event information, like the time and the location, and if I didn't include that in the actual copy, and let's say I forget alternative text, that post is now completely inaccessible. Folks with a visual impairment, if they can't see that image or read the text that's in that graphic, they wouldn't know where the event is. They wouldn't know how to get to it. They wouldn't know when it is. So it's really important that you supplement your graphic with the copy that you're writing,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not already including it in the copy, if that
Yes,
makes
and to
sense.
just add on to that as well, is we always advise people to avoid images of text altogether. So a lot of those graphics, like she was talking about, is going to be images of text. So that text is on top of an image or might be embedded into an image somehow. And we always advise people to avoid that as much as you can. And if you do, make sure you include that in the text as well, because like she was saying, that incurs other problems that we can't always be addressed, like with alt text. And that stuff just doesn't adjust well to things, because we also use other assistive technology as well. There's such a wide variety that's out there. Like there's text spacing, for example, and that's very effective for people who have dyslexia. And if you have image of text, they can't use that adaptive technology to be able to read, because that image of text isn't going to text space for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it's no longer text, it's an image.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. So you cannot manipulate it.
Right.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Not, Sarah. I mean, people can reach out to us and ask questions. If they don't have it right here, how can they get in touch with us?
That's a great segue. So I've got some contact information on this next slide. So there's my email, sarah.clark@ablr360.com. And then you can also go to our website, which is www.ablr360.com. And we've got a QR code up as well. If you follow that QR code, it will take you directly to a contact us form. We do want to mention that as part of this webinar, your participation, we'd love to provide you with a complimentary scorecard. So I'll go through your website and I take a look at all of the kind of the elements we talked about today. So the color contrast, the link purpose, and I kind of give y'all an overall view of how accessible your website is. So if you're interested or if you'd like, I definitely encourage y'all to follow that QR code, fill out the contact form, and just let us know that you were part of this webinar, and then we'll hook you up and get you that scorecard, and then we'll be in touch to review it and kind of go through some of our findings. But we'd love to have that opportunity to connect with you afterwards.
And as we talked about earlier, this is all accessibility is a journey, and there's no finish line. It's a continuous piece. And as we talked about it earlier, we can't do it alone. And that's why having partners like the Oklahoma Arts Council and NewView and Enabler, we're here to help you in your journey. And so we want to make sure that your intentionality about being more inclusive and accessible is met with the right support. So please do take a look at that. And it's what we love. It's what we live and love. So we're very excited.
Thank you all for listening, and thank you to Oklahoma Arts Council for inviting us. We had a blast today. I did, but
Yes.
So but yeah, thanks y'all so much, and all for your great questions and participation.
Thank you. Thank you, folks from Abler. Thanks everyone for attending this webinar. This was amazing information. Thank you for the resources. I will be sharing with everyone who's registered a link to this recorded meeting as well as the slides, because there were some great resources embedded in them. Abler, you're awesome. Thanks for this presentation, and thanks to NewView for the partnership in this. Everyone have a great day.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Erica.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.